Welcome back to Just Between Us by the Chocolate Drops. We got another spicy one today. We did a short clip on a agree or disagree if men and women can be friends if they're in a different relationship or if they're married. So we did that and y'all came for us in the comments. People said we were insecure. We didn't have a good foundation in our relationship so that we could have outside friends that were the opposite sex. So we wanted to do a little longer video so that we can explain our stance so y'all can get a little bit more information. But of course, we still want to hear from you. Do you think men and women can be friends if they're not together and they're married to someone else? Do y'all think that that's something that can work? So, for my or our perspective, we want to go ahead and share why we think it won't work. So, who wants to go first?
First. So when we mentioned that it wouldn't work for us, it wasn't particularly that means that no one, if this can work for anyone. I think it was just a personal decision that we felt within our own marriages that we are not comfortable with that. I know for me personally, I'm not comfortable with that. One, because I had male friends before getting married. And once I got married, if it was a friendship that I still valued, then or still wanted to continue, then I let them know, like, hey, here's my husband's information, hit him up, we can hang out, things like that. And then if it was like a friendship where I did feel like it was the opposite sex, but it was completely copacetic, I have only one like that, but he's also married. And so I'm friends with his wife and him as well. So we all chop it up and talk and things like that. So for me personally, it's not something that I would be comfortable with my husband having friends of the opposite sex. Thankfully, he doesn't. So that works out great. We didn't have to discuss anything or make any adjustments in that area. Thankfully and naturally, it was something that I cut off with any of the male friends I had before getting married. So,
Okay. What about
And
you,
just to
Aida?
add to that, okay. So just to add to that, I do want to give some background or some context to the reason why I had my original thoughts. And it's similar. I would just say like my background growing up in my household, we were always raised to believe that, when two people of the opposite sex date or have that close relationship, it's with the purpose of dating and getting married when you have that close friendship. So when I'm saying like, yes, he can have acquaintances and he can be friendly, but I'm talking about someone that he would talk to every day and text every day. That's the level of friendship that I personally, when we were having this discussion, would feel like would cross boundaries and wouldn't be appropriate as far as our marriage and our relationship, just because of the way I was raised and my background, that like if you're interacting with someone on that level, then that's of the opposite sex, then it's almost like you're dating, and if you're doing that, then I don't think that would be appropriate if you're already married. Like we can be all be friends, but like him having that kind of like separate relationship, I personally think would not be appropriate.
And I agree, and the same with you, like, the way I was raised, like, I didn't grow up, like, having friends that were guys that I, like, played with or talked to a lot. Now, I would say that, especially in school, I would say a lot of the people I talked to in school were guys, but it's not like they called me after school either to just, like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing today?" It wasn't anything like that. Like, I was friendly and friends with them in school, but not to an extent where they were friends calling me after school. My girlfriends could call me, but, not guy friends, because then my parents would be like, "Who this boy calling you?" So, I just kinda kept that as an adult. I would be friendly with guys, but friends to the point of like, "Hey, I'm gonna go hang out with this guy that's not my boyfriend or not someone who I'm dating." That just didn't happen. So, being in a marriage, I don't see my husband feeling okay with my guy friend calling me to just chit chat or me going out to lunch with my guy friend, just me and him because we're just friends. But I know when me and my husband did get married, he did have a lot of female friends. And in the beginning, they would still text, call, and I was like, "Nah." Like, I did not feel comfortable with that, so I needed him to respect
Right.
my views And my stance on that, like, no, you can text in the group chat, how we doing,
Mhm.
or we can all hang out, we can all go out to dinner, but not like y'all just not gonna just catch up without me. So that's my stance. So, um, do you feel like if you already have friends, and Keisha, you kind of already mentioned, if you already have these friends, is it is it expected that your mate should just be comfortable with you having these friends who are of the opposite sex and just, hey, I knew them before you?
I think that some marriages definitely that is the case. I've known of situations like that in some marriages, yeah, for sure, where the person is just really does have like a copacetic friendship with someone and it never started romantic. It was never romantic at any point. And not one, because sometimes in those types of friendships, there's always one person in the friendship that kind of has a crush or is kind of interested. Sometimes the other person doesn't know, sometimes they know. Or it could be that the friendship started where maybe you guys were talking or interested in each other, but then you realize, like, yeah, no, this is not someone I would be with anyway, but then you like them as a friend.
Mhm.
And so there are cases where it can be copacetic. Of course, definitely. There are friendships like that. And I think that's for each couple to determine what that is, what it looks like, how it started, and if there is under any underlining like romantic feelings there on either side, because sometimes people are oblivious, mostly men, supposedly.
Mhm.
Men act oblivious, like, oh, I didn't know she liked me. You knew. Don't play. No, I'm just kidding. But, but no. So I think it just depends on how it started, and it's for each person to kind of like observe that. But I know some stories and some situations where like someone was acting like it was copacetic and then something happened like down the line. So it's definitely something to be careful of for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely really depends on the context and the situation, and like with each marriage is going to be different, and how the dynamics of the relationship, and like you said, how like the friendship started. But I also feel like too, with anything, there's always should be a balance, because even if it is just completely platonic, I could see how it could raise like issues in the marriage, even if it is just
Mhm.
strictly friends. Because if you're spending more time with that person, talking to them, hanging out, then like that's time you're taking away from your spouse and from your partner. So I still feel like even if it was completely platonic, it should always be in balance, because in my opinion, your marriage mate or your partner should be your best friend and that person that you're always wanting to give your energy
Mhm.
and attention to. And if you're trying to divide that up, it could cause some issues if you're not balanced.
Yeah. And I think so, like I was talking to somebody and they were saying that they had like all these friends and some of them were guys, and now she's in a relationship and her boyfriend just does not agree that she should be hanging out with these guys. So he feels disrespected, but she like, nah, these my friends. I'm gonna keep my friends. And so she's like, I don't want to take away my friends. And now I'm fully invested in this boyfriend. And then if this boyfriend doesn't work out,
Hmm.
then now where are my friends? Who do I go to? So I could understand her viewpoint on that. But at the same time, like when I think of friends, like y'all my friends, and if I'm venting on something that me and my husband are going through, do you vent too with your guy friends? Because that to me is a little, now you telling your this guy friend, some relationship problems, and then he's like, "Oh no, I wouldn't do you like that." And, oh, a
Hmm.
man need to be doing this for you. And now you catch your feelings because it's like, oh, well, he understands. How come my boyfriend? How come my husband doesn't
Hmm.
understand? And then, or the other way around, like if we're venting, now my husband is telling some other girl, all these things. And then she's like, see, because if I, me as a woman, I would be doing this, I'd be doing that, or she shouldn't be, doing this. And like, you can tell your guy friends, the girls can tell the girlfriends, but the opposite to me gets messy and it sounds
Yeah.
like
It gets
problems.
Sounds
complicated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
And I know some
yeah.
I know some girls that like they get along better with the opposite sex, and the
Mhm.
same like vice versa, where there's some guys that like they get along better with the opposite sex. And so in those type of situations, it is complicated because that's what that person is most comfortable with, and it really is
Right.
copacetic, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to someone else too, and she's single, but she has guy friends. And so I asked her, like, how does that work if you're just like, because she was like, yeah, I was talking on my phone with my friend. She was like, yeah, it was my guy friend. And then I'm like, how does that work? Like, how you just like strictly friends with this guy? And so she's like, she's just friends with him, but he wants
Has
something
feelings.
more.
Mm-hmm.
He has feelings and
That
he wants something more. So I'm like, so I feel like sometimes it's not really just we just
Friends.
friends. You
Yeah.
know, it's somebody on the other end would wish for something more. And then like
Mm-hmm.
then are
Mhm.
you really just friends? Or is he, kind of hoping for something more and she's like he just waiting on her to be okay with that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. I think that's like I think that happens a lot. That's
Mm-hmm.
why it's hard to say, and that's why it's really just up to each couple to determine what they're comfortable with and make a decision on that, because sometimes it is just nothing to it and sometimes it's
Mhm.
not.
True.
And
Well,
then what
this
about the situations? Sorry, one more thing. I was
no.
just thinking about this. What about the situations where like maybe it was just like platonic, right?
Mhm.
And I was just thinking about it. And I'm like, I don't know if copacetic was the word I've been wanting to use. I think it was platonic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But oops, my bad. I just thought about that. I'm like, wait, why am I saying? Anyway, so what if it really is just platonic, right? But then say for example you're in a relationship or a marriage and things get tough and that person becomes like your confidant, and now like even though you were never attracted to this person or maybe they were never attracted to you, now all of a sudden this attraction builds because of you maybe like confiding in this person and that person caring about you so much as a friend and wanting better for
Mhm.
you. And so now
Mhm.
they
Exactly.
start having feelings, and it could be something where there was never feelings before and it was just platonic, but now
Yep.
there's an opportunity.
Yep.
Exactly.
So that was, yeah.
And that's what I was kind of mentioning earlier as far as my concern, because if you're spending that much time with someone, there's going to be an emotional connection. And so
Mhm.
like you're giving those emotions, those feelings, that support to someone other than your spouse, then like, yeah, it's friendly, but like you said, if an opportunity arises or things change and then that person might have always had some type of like attraction that never was spoken, then it could lead to something else.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep, and that was my thought. So, with all the information that we just shared, we want to know if you have friends of the opposite sex and then you enter into a relationship, do you give up those friends? Do you expect your mate to be just accept the friendships that you had? Let us know in the comments and let us know if you agree or disagree with what we had to say. Until next time, we're the Chocolate Drops, and this is just between us. Bye.
Bye.